Howdy, folks. Darren Ray Fonso here talking about workers' compensation and labor and industries in the state of Washington and across America, and we'll approach other countries as well because we have a genocide of injured workers that's happening not just in the United States, but Canada, England, and maybe some other countries that we're not aware of. But the topic today is part two of my experience with my local Green Party trying to seek help to get the minimum federal standards that Senator Bernie Sanders says we need on the table for injured workers of America. So this is part two of that video where I went out and I sought help for the Green Party members, my local Green Party members. And thanks for the thumbs up. From my local Green Party members, only to find out that the whole thing seemed to be infiltrated by people from the chambers of commerce and from the business community and from the local hospital and from hospital management. And so that's pretty frustrating. But anyways, and even had one of them at one point when I tried to seek help tell me that he's a hospital manager at one of the hospitals, and his injured workers are just fine. So workers' comp in Washington State is not broken, and you're wrong. And it ended up I was right. And now here it is 3 years later. I see one of the members who was at those meetings. I went to those meetings. I went to like 4 meetings, I think it was, altogether, plus helped them go carry a sign for Jill Stein over the freeway with my son. So anyways, here it is 3 years later. A lot has happened. A lot of news has come out that shows that I've been telling the truth. I have also won my own claim as well, which shows I was telling the truth, yet these people in this group really didn't want me to get my issue on the table. They did allow me to post in the group, and there was a couple of them that really were behind me and just every time were resharing it and trying to get the word out to others and saying, oh, this is horrible. But it was only like 1 or 2 of them. And then and yet there was this whole other core group of people that seemed to run the whole show, and even seemed to run the Bernie-crats as far as I'm concerned, because Tyler Vega was at those meetings that I went to before, at least at one of them. So there's kind of a tie-in with the Bernie-crats there. But what was real frustrating for me today is I came across a picture that showed this lady who had introduced me to the Green Party. Her name was Tina. She said a picture with Rick Larson, who's an entrenched Democrat, who I was screaming and begging for help for 5 or 7 years now. I've been screaming for help for Rick Larson, and here she is in a picture with him and this other guy, John McCoy, who's my state senator, who I've also begged for help from. And so she's hobnobbing her way up to get her business going, because she has a small business apparently, and that's where another thing I'm getting to. When she's a member of the Chamber of Commerce of all like 2-3 cities around here, is she representing the Chamber of Commerce or the injured workers of America? I mean, this is why I can't get help when I go to that local Green Party group to seek help for the injured workers of America, because the police officer who arrested me said, Darren, seek some help from the local political parties to get your issue heard. And so I did reach out to that way, and I reached out to the Democrats, of course, at first, and they were shunning me. And the Republicans did the same thing. I was told by them that it's making money, nothing's broken. So all that left me was a socialist, and I had reached out to Kashmir Sawant for over 5 years and been shunned, and she has no intent to get truthful about the minimum federal standards for injured workers. And so that was a socialist that left that off the table. The only option left was for me to go down to this Green Party folks and say, hey, either that, yeah, that was about my only option left. There might have been some that I don't know about, but that's the one I want to choose to try and get my voice heard through, and to try to get the injured workers issue addressed, and was just totally shunned. Like I said, a couple people in the group, they would still let me post, and that's why I said 1 or 2 of them they were really behind me, but all these other people just ignored it and shunned it, and then even closed me out over a time of blocked me, I guess you would call it, and then one of them censored me out of the group. So they really did not want this issue for the injured workers or for laborers to be on the table. And it's really sad when I have a letter from Bernie Sanders to the United States Department of Labor demanding and saying we need this, and OSHA says we need it, and the Department of Labor all told us we need these minimum federal standards, and Sanders does, and yet these people who want to fly Sanders' flag behind their head don't seem to want to get this issue on the table for the injured workers of America. And I can't blame, like the people up top, like Trump or even Bernie Sanders in this matter, because he's told us what we need, when it's these people at the bottom that are like the blocks to me or any other injured worker from getting through and having our voices truly represented by our elected officials, whether it's Green Party, Jill Stein, or any of them. And Jill Stein won't even speak up. I have begged upon her and David Cobb, who was her campaign manager that I met here in Everett when he came here. And I told him about the war on injured workers. And that's what I told these people in a group meeting about a war on injured workers that we needed addressed. And then I shared on their pages how bad it was. And then they even said, come on down to one meet and we'll talk about your issue. Well, I sat all the way through that meeting to the end and they still didn't want to bring up my issue. And then it was time to go and nobody had time to address my issue. And then on the way out, I'm talking to one of the members, and he said he worked at a hospital. I said, oh, that's great. That's who I'm fighting for is nurses. And he said, oh, well, I'm a manager at our hospital, and nobody's getting hurt at our hospital. Everybody's being treated and work comp's not broken. Well, then how am I supposed to get anything fixed? And now they got some other nurse from Cascade Valley Hospital, and she's running for trying to get an RN who's trying to get into the business RN management program. So she's trying to get and appease management as well. So she has no intent to stand up and fight for the injured workers of America. This is why we are failing the injured workers of America. It isn't just because of like Patty Murray's or the people at top. It's these people at the bottom who are members of the Chambers of Commerce who have time to go sit and go to these little meets that the rest of us who are struggling and starving to survive can't go down and do. This isn't total being representative of the people. And like for somebody like me who's been felonized and everything, there's no way I'm going to go sit and try to get my voice heard down at your meetings. This is the only way I have to do that. And I did try to do it before I was totally felonized all a couple times over it, to reach out from the local Green Party. You can go to their site and see where I did share my stuff. They allowed me to share it, but it was just ignored by the majority. Like I said, I could count on one hand the ones that were supporting me. And one guy was absolutely awesome. I'm not going to front his name out, but he was totally behind, we need to do this, because he read the letter from Bernie Sanders and said, yeah, I'm a Sanders supporter, and yeah, we should probably do what he wants done for the injured workers of America. It doesn't take a brainiac to do that, but apparently everybody else is in bed with business and is more concerned with state work comp rates than they are the injured workers. And apparently I wasn't broke enough for a couple of them, because one of them says she's also a disabled representative in our community somehow. Well, if you're representing disabled people in our community and you're not telling them about a war that's being waged on 1 in 4 of us through a state work comp systems and the SSDI programs, then I'm sorry, ma'am, you have a problem. And that is the problem, is because those are the blocks to anybody who is a victim, comes to you people crying, has some solutions from Sanders and the U.S. Department of Labor and OSHA that will fix the problem for his people, but yet you all fucking look away. Oh, well, here, we got something else we can give you, or we got this that we give you. No, we address the issue of the harm done to the injured workers in America, like Senator Sanders says, needs done. This co-opting of the local groups, and then like the businessmen like Tyler Vega and all the other ones running for office, all going around, they're all going, it's all the Chamber of Commerce, and if it's not the Chamber of Commerce, then it's biotech industry doctors, and if it's not them, then it's the medical industry nurses and other doctors coming down, going to these meetings, people that have time to do it, and some of them even getting paid by their employers these meetings, or getting perks as far as like a nursing program that by being socially involved helps them another notch up that nursing program. I'm sorry, we are not being represented in our community by the leaders that are running it at this point, from either the Republicans or the Democrats or a Green Party that seems to be nothing but because when I see her, that's the biggie to me today. Sitting down and having lunch with Rick Larson and John McCoy, two of people who are the entrenched Democrats, who have also don't want injured workers or this thing to have minimum federal standards for the injured workers of America. When I see her whining and dining down there with that, and it's been 3 years now since she basically took control of that party, and I watched her do that, my local Green Party, and run it and getting all the signs together and having us do that, and I was okay to hold the sign for her, but not okay for her to stand up and fight for the injured worker of the war that was being waged upon me and my family. That apparently I wasn't broke physically enough for her, but she doesn't realize my harm wasn't just my physical harm. It was some mental harm that was done as well, that with her mental telepathy and her smart little nose, she can't sniff out. Or the other lady that seemed to have a real physical disability that she was born with. I'm sorry, you can't sniff out somebody else's mental illness. And the fact that you all were, and you would turn your back on men and women in your community who I have showed you news clip after news clip after news clip across this country of human lives being harmed and people being pushed into homelessness. And we have this U.S. Department of Labor study that tells us that the 25% of the opioid-related deaths in one state can be traced back to a work comp, but yet you all don't want to address the issue. This is just, that was my experience with the Green Party. Let's put it that way. So to the police officer that told me to seek out help, that's what I did, sir. And that's why I wear the badge now, sir. Not to put yours down or belittle yours, but mine does not have a gun behind it. It does not have any power or any clout or anything like that. I wear one because it represents the truth to harm being done to humans. I wear one because it stands up, because I am the labor sheriff now. I am self-appointed, self-anointed, and ordained by God, because nobody else is stepping up and taking that position. Not when I have people claiming to be Bernie-crats, one in a Green Party and running the Bernie-crat show, and none of them can stand up and fight for injured workers and what Senator Sanders says we need. But you all can hobnob with the other people that are also remaining silent. And none of you will put the issue on the table for the injured workers of America. There's something wrong with that. We're failing the injured workers of America because these groups are fake front groups that seem to be infiltrated by nothing but people with a business intention and a motive to protect state work comp rates than they would rather protect their human brothers and sisters who are being put on the state work comp trains. Death trains, we're calling them. Work comp death trains, sorry. Because we had one Bernie-crat candidate even that's endorsed. His name is Scott Stefani, I think it was. I hope I remember his name right. Is endorsed by the Bernie-crat coalition, called it a genocide on injured workers. Yet, they can't put this issue on the table. There's someone with that. We have the solutions. We have injured workers and people coming to you screaming harm. And that's why I'm left with this person named Tina, who was what I call a ne'er-do-well, who's trying to promote her business and self-promote it while promoting how she's going to fight for poor people and stand up and fight for the little domestic violence and all this kind of crap. But yet when I came to you, ma'am, and I showed you I was being harmed, and I told you others were also suffering under this egregious abuse, which is becoming a human rights violation. Yes, ma'am, that's what it was called in Canada. The same thing that was done to me was called a human rights violation. And so when you snub your noses, I find it very offensive. And what I also find going on here is an infiltration by the business community and the people that are part of this, what do you call it, Chamber of Commerce. I'm sorry. If you're pandering to the Chamber of Commerce, well, shunning injured workers, you are not a Bernie-crat or a Democrat, or really a good human being for that matter at this point, because we even have people on the other side of the fence saying this needs to be done. We can't have one human harming another with their pens and then standing behind a different set of laws. Anyways, my experience with the Green Party, I just want to leave it at that. That's the way it went down. And how, hey, Robert Tapp, I see you there. Thank you for stopping by. This is egregious that but this is kind of going on. I mean, that's what happened why I couldn't get help police officer, sir, the one that told me to reach out and seek help from my local political party for the Injured Workers of America. This is why I'm not getting help. They don't want to help us. And they got people implanted from all the business community and the hospital management communities and the biotech management that when we come through and we try to get our voices heard, we're blocked. And the same thing at the union halls. Our voices are not getting through. There's no union out there standing up, very couple of them. And the only one standing up and fighting for us at this point is this group called the Socialist something, World Socialist Group or something. It's not even Kashmir Sawant's people. It's people, the World Socialists, that are standing up and fighting for us because Kashmir Sawant is failing to do so. And so, hurrah to the world socialists that are standing up and speaking up and exposing the harm for Amazon workers injured on their jobs. It's not just Amazon, and you talk to those Amazon workers, they will tell you the truth. It's every other company that is going on across this country as well. And I'm here to tell you, it happened to me at the University of Washington Medical Center. If it can happen to me there, it can happen to you anywhere. We need these minimum federal standards, and we don't need members from the business community promoting their business rather than standing up and fighting for the injured workers of America. If you're going to call yourself a Green Party Jill Stein or a socialist or a bleeding heart liberal, as far as I'm concerned, because where I come from, the bleeding heart liberal, we really care about the humans. That's where we were taught. And at this point, like I say, it's not even a bipartisan matter anymore. This is a human rights issue. That's why I have a Republican who's also running. I'm sorry, Limke. It's the only thing I can say his name. Sometimes he runs for office. He says he supports injured workers. He's a Republican local, runs for office around here. I'm not that, but I will give him kudos for the courage to stand up and speak up for injured workers because he happens to be one. And if you haven't lived it, you don't know it. And for you little prissies trying to be revolutionaries and telling me how, well, I just turned to you, and now that Bernie Sanders is running, that enthused me to get involved with politics. Well, I've been involved with politics my whole life. I've been voting the whole 50 years or 30 years for me. And during that time, I also took political science where I aced it. I also got a took business law and almost aced it with a B-. But anyways, there was a couple other paralegal classes that I went through. So I've studied law, and then I worked 15 years at the hospital bedside, at hospitals in this community, and doing home care as well. So I'm a healthcare provider, and then before that, 15 years construction and labor. So I come to you broken and hurt and harmed to my local Green Party, papers in hand and harm in hand, showing David Cobb even. I have the Facebook and all the communiques to prove it, where we communicated back and forth, where I showed proof of harm to humans and how I wanted this issue addressed with the minimum federal standards that Sanders wanted, and none of them wanted to put that on the table. This is egregious at this point, that the people on the left that I am reaching out to in this community, even the socialists around here, Kashmir Sawant, cannot stand up and say, we need these minimum federal standards and we need them as of 30 years ago. Anyways, I wanted to keep it short, and it's too damn long. So 20 minutes, I wanted it 10. But that's the way it gets. That's it just eats at your brain, and especially when you reached out to these people for help who claim to be wanting to help poor people, wanting to help the victimized, wanting to help the uninsured, wanting to, and that's another thing, we're going to get you Medicare for all, and I make a video already about that, how just giving us Medicare for all does not resolve the injured workers issue, because it doesn't resolve the compensation of one man getting $175,000 for an arm in one state and $35,000 in the other. You don't solve our issue. What you're doing is cost shifting most of us. And anyways, that's a whole nother video, and I will close with that. My experience with the Green Party, that's how it went. I have 2 videos that tell the truth of how Jill Stein, nor the Green Party, has no intent to stand up and fight for the injured workers of America. And some of these ne'er-do-wells that seem to be running the show really have no heart or sympathy for those they seem to say that they do. If they did, they would have looked past somebody's physical appearance to comprehend and see the other stories besides mine. If you didn't like the messenger, the message was still there of harm to humans that none of you cared to address, whether you like the messenger or not. If Jesus himself walked down into some of your groups, Tina, and I will say this to you specifically because you seem to ride that road so big, and asked you to help for injured workers, would you have turned your back on him, man? That's all I got to say. Thank you and have a good day. Yeah, Tina, what would Jesus do?